following is the transcript of the tape-recorded interview of Jack Womes from the 14th of the 5th, 96. This interview is being tape-recorded. There was a bit of a hiccup there, just with the tape started twice. Nothing was said the first time it started. We're in the interview room at Clacton Police Station. Interview number 1. The time is now 16:03 by my watch. The date is the 14th of the 5th, 96. I'm Detective Sergeant Tim Willis, stationed at the Police Headquarters Central Detective Unit. The other officer present is Detective Constable 2034, Myhill, also stationed at Headquarters CDU. And also present, Sarah Osborne, Customs Officer based at Haven Hill in Ipswich. I'm interviewing your name, please? Jack Arthur Womes. And your date of birth, please, Jack? The 13th of the 2nd, 61. Right. And also present is your legal representative. Could you please, for the benefit of the recording, give your name and station? Paul Roach, duty solicitor today. Before the commencement of the interview, I must remind you that you're entitled to free independent legal advice, either in person or by telephone at any stage, and that also applies to you while you're being interviewed. If you wish to speak to your solicitor while the interview is going on, that's no problem, just let us know. We'll stop the tapes. I'll also tell you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something that you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand that? That's what we call the caution, Jack. It's self-explanatory. I'm sure the solicitors advised you on your rights in relation to that you've been arrested. Before we say anything else, you've been very kind. You've supplied me with some information concerning your investigations. Obviously, you recognise that my client has been arrested for immensely serious offences. I'm also grateful the information you provided. But I have to say that it is so skeletal at the moment, so lacking in detail, and some cases so mysterious, and I recognise well enough you've arrested other people. You're questioning them. That at this particular stage, given the lack of information generally, I acknowledge you've given me some information concerning an importation. Now at this stage, it may well be that my client will be choosing to exercise his right to say nothing. Okay? And I think we'll be sitting here very interested to hear what's going to be said, because clearly it's evidence that's important, and we'll be listening with great interest, obviously. Yeah, right, I appreciate that explanation. You've been arrested last night, and today, for all of which are very serious offences. Obviously murder is the most serious offence that you're going to get arrested for, to my mind, and I appreciate that you obviously want to hear what I've got to say about it first. Just to clarify the situation, you was arrested by the customs last night. That is in relation to a conspiracy to import controlled drugs, which the importation side relates to events over the weekend just gone, in particular the 12th and the 13th of the 5th, 96. I told your solicitor beforehand that this is the case. There's been an awfully lot of work done over the last few months. Some of it's very complicated. It's something that's not going to be sorted out in one interview. We're obviously going to have to go away and see what's been seen. Other people have been arrested and being spoken to as we speak. We may have to come back and go over some things again, etc. I think this interview we're going to try and confine to the events of the last few days, leading up to and immediately to your arrest. Okay, so I want to talk in general and specific terms about what's happened over the last 4 or 5 days in particular. Can you give me your address, home address? I live at Brockford. And so what do you do for a living? Commercial engineer. And you have a business address? It's Unit 3, Haulage Yard, Norwich Road, Barham. And you have a name you trade as? No, I just trade under my own name. Are you part of GT Commercials? Do you know of this company at all? Yes, I know the company, yeah. Do you work for them or any part of the company? I do work for the company. And who owns the company? I'm not going to speak anymore. Tim, can I just... Yeah. Just before you go much further, you were going to mention, before we went any further, about the amount of officers with regards to any intimidation. Yeah, we spoke to, when we were all sitting here just before the tape started, about the fact that it's a small room. There's 5 of us sitting here, as the tape will know from the introductions. If you feel at any time that because there's 3 people potentially questioning you, although, like I said, we're not going to fire questions at you, but if you feel oppressed or threatened by their presence of so many people, then please let us know. And we've asked your solicitor first if he was happy with it. He seemed, quite happy. I think we're quite happy with the interview setup as it is. I will say this, that if these interviews are going to go on for any length of time at all, bearing in mind that we're not going to be sat in this room, which is actually quite hospitable, this room. It's quite humane. The station itself is grim. Right. So you do some work for G&T commercials, but you're not prepared at this stage to speak about who may or may not work at the premises or own the business. Will you tell us what vehicles you currently own? No. Or whether you have any boats whether you own any boats or control any boats? Or mobile phone. Do you have a mobile phone at all? You appreciate I have to ask these questions. Notwithstanding the fact we are choosing to say nothing, which is your right, the officer has a duty to continue actually. Yes. Yesterday, 13th of the 5th, 96, you was arrested by customs officers at Unit 3, Norwich Road, Barnum. Is that correct, Mr. Worms? Let me just point out for the tape that there's no comment and no gestures being made by Mr. Worms at all. Right, you was arrested whilst you was in possession of pressure washing a rigid inflatable boat that was on a trailer outside a unit. That was Unit 3, Norwich Road, Barham. And it was hitched up to an A-registered Land Rover. Is that correct? Who owns the boat that was on the trailer? I have to say at this point, Mr. Worms, that you do not have to say anything unless you wish to do so, but what you do say may be given in evidence. On the 13th of the 5th, 96, at Unit 3, Norwich Road, Barham, you were found cleaning a rigid inflatable boat. I have reason to believe that this boat was used in the importation of a controlled substance on the 13th of the 5th, 96. I am therefore requesting that you account for your actions and what you were doing with that boat on the 13th of the 5th, 96. I must warn you that if you fail or refuse to do so, a court judge or jury may draw such inferences from your failure or refusal as appear proper. That's called a special warning. Now, one of the criteria for using that special warning is when you fail to account for an arrest. I'm not sure that this is strictly speaking. He's failed to give you an account, you're saying, of his place of arrest. No, of the object I'm referring to, the boat. The object? I've asked him who the boat belonged to. There was no answer. I'm asking reference the boat. So you're saying that this is an object? Yes. You're saying, alleging you have reasonable suspicion that this was used in an offence. That's right, and that is why I'm asking the question. I've issued the warning. I've given you the warning as you understand reference the boat, and I've given you an opportunity because the solicitor's obviously just been speaking for you to make any comment to that warning. Right, no comment has been made. I would like to speak to you about your actions over the last few days, commencing really if we could start on the 11th of the 5th, 96, and any business or whatever you were doing at Unit 3 Norwich Road, Barham. Are you prepared to say anything concerning your actions from the 11th of the 5th onwards? Do you control that unit at G&T Commercials yourself? It's fair to say that when you was arrested, you had keys on yourself for those premises. Is that correct? And I believe you referred to the officers that you had 2 sets of keys because some other people are involved with controlling that property or away on holiday. Is that correct? Is that vessel, that rigid inflatable boat that you were cleaning, you were arrested, is that your boat? Is that boat normally stored at your property? Were you involved with the purchase of that vessel? On the 11th of the 5th, 96, did you go to G&T Commercials at any point during the day? Did you do anything in relation to that vessel, the rigid inflatable boat that was there when you was arrested on that particular day at those premises? Did you meet anybody at that premises on that particular day? That is Saturday, the 11th of the 5th. I'll move on to Sunday, the 5th of the 5th. Sunday, the 12th of the 5th, beg your pardon. Did you go to the premises, Unit 3, Norwich Road, Barham on that day? On the 12th of the 5th, Sunday 12th of the 5th, you were seen to arrive at that premises in a blue van. That blue van is registration LD8YDX. Is that your vehicle? The vehicle arrived at G&T Commercials. That was observed by officers to make that quite clear to you. And it was observed that the rigid inflatable boat was removed from the premises at Unit 3 and was towed away by the blue transit van. Was that you driving? The vehicle was seen to travel to a mobile service station on the A14 at Nacton Heath, where the vessel at this time was filled with fuel. Was that you? At the petrol station there was another 3 other people who was associated with the van and the boat. Who were those people? Following the stop at the fuel station, the van towing the trailer was seen being followed by another vehicle, which was a Jaguar, black Jaguar, and that was seen heading down to Leventon Marina. It is believed that you were driving that blue transit van. Do you have any comment to make? Who were the other three people in the Jaguar behind? At Leventon Marina, the boat was launched with two people on board, and shortly therefore, the blue transit van with the empty boat trailer was seen to leave the marina. Was that you driving the transit van? Who had gone off on the boat? What was the purpose of their trip? Following the departure from Leventon Marina, the man with the empty boat trailer was seen to proceed to Staff House Main Road, Brockford, and was reversed in down the side of the house. As you previously mentioned, that is your home address, is that correct? Were you in the trailer? Were you in the van? What were your actions after that? Did you leave the premises again that evening? At approximately 2 a.m. in the morning on the 13th, the rigid inflatable boat that had been launched on the trailer at Leventon the previous day came in on the beach in the vicinity of Clacton Pier, and the two people were seen to meet that boat. Was that you? Later on the 13th for the 5th, at approximately 6:30, the Blue Transit was seen carrying an empty trailer on the A140 south of Brockford, and it was seen to go to the Ipswich docks in the vicinity of Clift Quay. The driver, which is perceived to be yourself, was then involved together with others carrying the rigid inflatable boat out of the water. Is that true? Who else was present? Why were you there? What had been the purpose of that trip? The vessel was seen to be potted onto the trailer and was later seen being put into Unit 3, Norwich Road, Barham. Were you there? On the 13th of the 5th, when you was arrested, what was you cleaning the boat down? What sort of hours do you normally keep when you say you have a job? Do you keep the same hours as well as the majority of the working day? You work during the day and sleep during the night generally. What do you know of a man called Mickey Steele, lives here in Clacton, or nearby here in Clacton? Or a Mr. Nichols from Braintree, Darren I think, or Russell Tate? Do you know Russell Tate, apart from the fact he's the brother of one of the victims of the murders you've been arrested for? Have you recently been to Mickey Steele's house in Great Bentley? I've got a list of calls that have been made. It's not actually a definitive list yet, but there is one on it from which I believe is your mobile telephone, from which it shows in particular that you've been phoning Mickey Steele's phone with tremendous frequency of the last few days at all times of night and day. Would that be correct? Times, from 1 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and in fact that Mickey's phone, should I say, has been phoning your home address, which I think is that correct? Again, strange times in the morning. It would seem strange. Anything you'd like to say about that? See, for instance, Mr. Steele phones Mr. Worms at home at 5:58, about an hour before Mr. Worms arrives at the docks. Sorry, beg your pardon, leaves from home with the transit mentioned earlier and the trailer. Are you aware of what constitutes a conspiracy to commit a criminal offence? I mean, obviously, your solicitor's the best person to advise. For instance, if I was going to take a boat across to import a load of cannabis, and I was going to drive across, in someone else's boat, if I said to Kevin, can I borrow your boat to go across in the middle of the night to the continent, bring a load of cannabis, then Kevin agreed, then perhaps drove me down, or picks the boat up afterwards, then Kevin is guilty of a conspiracy to commit the same offence with me. And I think it's the simplest form that would be. It's a simple bit of legalisation, quite a powerful bit of legalisation, but just so there's no misunderstanding and you know where you sit in relation to Mr. Steele, Mr. Nichols, Mr. Tate and the others. Do you know of a Paul Gwinnett? How do you spell the surname? Gwinnet. Have you ever had any dealings with him? Do you know it's illegal to import drugs into the United Kingdom? I don't know that I want to say too much more at the moment. Are you happy to finish for now? Yes. I don't think there's anything else we really want to go into, but you obviously know a little bit more now, more by influence than anything else. Where we stand in it, and where we see perhaps Worms' part in the events of this last weekend. So I propose at this stage to conclude this interview for the time being, unless you've anything to say in representation of that for yourself, Jack, of course. No. I'll just give you this notice then. This is a notice that I explained to you at the start of the interview, which explains how you or your solicitor can get a copy. It's called the A405, and I ask you to sign this yellow, which just says that form's been served. Nothing else before you sign it, okay? Put the time down as 16:37, and this interview is concluded.